Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Monday, the day after 4th of July weekend. And we hope you guys had a fantastic weekend getting out in our amazing New Mexico weather. It is amazing to live in New Mexico, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But I do want to say to everybody, welcome to our brand new July webinar series. We're excited to share with you a whole new topic, a whole new group of panelists and speakers, and it's going to be a really great month. And so hello from the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. And again, we welcome you all to the brand new July series that we have called Trade Builds New Mexico. So I think that it's important that you guys know that this upcoming month we have scheduled, I think somewhere around 9 or 10, I have to go back and count them, webinars that are going to be focused on the importance of what trade does to an economy and how it actually builds not just the world or the United States, but it actually builds our state as well. And so we have some really great experts in this field to share with us throughout this coming month about how we can participate, how your business can learn and grow and scale from doing trade business, things you probably never thought of before, and what it's going to take to prepare you. We'll even hear from some businesses that have been very successful in import-export, and they would like to share some of their successes with you, be your inspiration out there. So today, to get us started, we have a great panel. We have a great topic. We're going to just kind of do an overall and get you guys prepared for that. So I think we are about to welcome on our president here of the Hispano Chamber. I see his name kind of coming up. So as they pop on, we will make sure to introduce them to you. But let's get started with those introductions because we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm sure we're going to take our full hour. So I'm just going to move to the way that it works for my computer, if you guys don't mind. I know it's different on everybody's computer. But Burley, if you could start, let's start with who you are, what you do, and how you became involved in this industry.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys putting this on and having me today. My name is Burley Kane. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity, and we're a nationwide nonprofit organization that activates and engages our constituents and communities, businesses in these situations that empower our communities, that break barriers for those who have them, and give us the best opportunity to flourish. And so my background is I was born and raised in New Mexico. Family moved here in 1913. I went to UNM and got a degree in economics and had a trading company for many years in the marketplace and got involved in the world of public policy about 10 years ago. And I've been studying it and working in it for quite a while now. And my interest is in economics and in empowering communities, business leaders to flourish. And one of the ways that we find we can do that is through free trade and through maximizing the opportunities we find in the most advantageous locations, connecting in mutual benefit. So I'm very excited to be here today and talk about some of the opportunities that we have to strengthen our great state and empower some more businesses at these challenging times to see how to maximize their opportunity.
Thank you so much, Burley. Next, we're going to move down to Ruben.
Hi, thanks, guys, so much for putting this series together. We're very excited to be able to talk about these issues and to really bring these issues to the forefront for so many business owners and people in our community here in New Mexico. My name is Ruben Guajardo. I am born and raised Burqueño, Albuquerque, New Mexico. My whole life, I've been here pretty much my whole life. Proud Lobo, graduate of the University of New Mexico School of Law. And so I've been in more than one circle and around the block, you could say here. I am currently the Community Engagement Director for the LIBRE Initiative, New Mexico's chapter. And we're a national organization that focuses on breaking barriers in the Hispanic community. And we focus really on both internal barriers and external barriers. And so whatever we can do to help create the avenues and the channels so that those barriers can be broken and people can thrive in the most aspects of life possible. That's what we do, whether it's an internal barrier like not knowing English. And so we offer English as a second language classes all over the state, or whether it's financial issues or driving classes to obtain driver's license. All of that kind of stuff is what we focus on for the Hispanic community. Now, when we talk about Hispanics and Hispanic business owners in particular, one of the barriers that we have been talking about recently, and really is a barrier that exists in our community, are trade barriers. And so tariffs and all of those kind of things are stuff that we're looking at, and we want to get the conversation out so that people really understand how these barriers affect us, and how moving toward removing some of those barriers can help Hispanic business owners thrive. The LIBRE Initiative is also a proud member of the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and so we're really excited to be able to partner with the organization and get this webinar series kicked off.
Thank you, Ruben. And yes, you are. And we're excited. We've done some work in the past, so it's going to be fun to rekindle and spend this month together. So welcome. We thank you. Angela, please take it away.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everyone. It's really exciting to be here today. And I am a staunch advocate for trade, and have spent over the last 20 years of my career working both from the congressional side, involved in many trade negotiations that opened up exports. And I know we're going to hear about some of the exciting companies who have been able to tap into everything from Colombia to Central America, Asian markets, and more. And I've also worked on the corporate side for over 14 years, leading international government affairs. So I've been able to see products moving through the supply chain and navigating the complexities, but also the opportunities of international trade. And right now I'm really excited because trade is not a spectator sport. So I'm working with companies across the country. In fact, I was just at a pecan grove this last year in New Mexico, beautiful pecan grove, talking about the importance of USMCA. So helping small businesses find their voice, tell their story, because you know what? Our negotiators can only do so much if they don't hear from the folks in their home state, and they can't understand how important and personal those impacts are until they tell their stories. So excited about this series, Shannon, and really happy to be partnering with you all today.
Thank you guys so much. I'm not sure if Ernie is on yet. Ernie, are you there yet? I know he logged on. He was on another call, but we'll come back to him. Oh, Ernie, I think you're on mute. Will you let him know he's on mute and he's on voice? He's on voice and video mute. That's the great thing about Zoom. We're like mute, mute, mute. Sometimes you can see their voice and nope. Okay, he'll come to us when he gets here.
Oh, there he goes. He just unmuted.
Oh, did he? Okay, Ernie, we can't see you or hear you. I hear him. Nope, we cannot hear you at all. We'll send this tech genius that's in our office down to help you shortly.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Maybe I could kick off with the mission of what we're looking to work on at the Trade Builds New Mexico campaign.
No, I think that would be really, really great. And we can also from there roll into the presentation. So that'll kind of set the tone for the rest of the hour. So please really take it away.
Okay. So Trade Builds New Mexico is working to highlight the importance of trade to New Mexico by bringing together state business and community and leaders across industries to build an enduring network of trade leaders. Working together, these trade leaders will help educate other federal, state, and local lawmakers about how trade impacts New Mexico consumers, manufacturers, businesses, and taxpayers. And that provides all of us with stronger partnerships. We want to build a sustainable network of long-term allies on trade who can speak out when beneficial trade policies are threatened and mobilize to support any trade opportunities on the horizon. Americans for Prosperity is the largest grassroots organization in the world, and we have a great record of working on issues that are important to breaking through these barriers. And with these partnerships, we can do incredible things. And we're at an important time in the trade conversation to be able to help those businesses struggling with margins, pushing through COVID and all the things we're doing. So we're here to educate decision makers by working together across industries and communities throughout New Mexico. We can better educate the New Mexico lawmakers where that's appropriate about trade's impact on job creation, supply chains, emerging industries, and business growth. Obviously, there is a capacity they can do in their power as state representatives and senators, but there's also a lot they can do to push and sound toward the national conversation, toward our federal delegates in the Senate and House. And those final conversations that we're having right now that are highlighted by this moment of economic uncertainty when it's so hard on businesses. And it's a good time for us to ensure trade is part of our recovery. We know that at a time of economic insecurity, trade can often be an easy scapegoat. You want to blame the problem somewhere else. At the end of the day, we're going to be able to showcase that really this is a detriment right now. This is hard on businesses that are having a hard time with COVID, and it's unnecessary. And this strengthens the economy by having free trade. And we'll have a better outcome right now. This ensures New Mexico's small businesses, farmers, and manufacturers have access to global markets and consumers, and will be a key component of our state's economic recovery, which we're all working on making sure it happens and is strong so that we can take off from here into 2021. We're also going to tell personal stories, and we have some today for you. We want to help provide a platform to our partners to amplify a pro-trade message across the state and in New Mexico in media, online, and at events like these. And we had some online events scheduled. We had some in-person events scheduled, and we switched them to accommodate COVID and to make amenable the situation that we're all faced in. And it's a unique one, and we're all doing our best, and we appreciate you guys joining us online and working through the online format. Please share these. These are going to be recorded, so share them with your community, your other business partners, and let them know to advocate for this. We know that when businesses give firsthand accounts of how trade supports their employment and business, it resonates with the state leaders. And I can tell you, after many testimony, I'm sure Ernie can say the same, Ruben, Angela, many of us who've done this, personal testimony is the most powerful. Your story is the most important. And we need you to connect with us and share it with us so that we can connect that personal story, that community story, that local story with leaders who may not know it and may not understand the impacts of some of the decisions they're making. So please do connect with us. Ruben, I'll turn it over to you for well, actually, Ernie, you joined us.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I'm gonna give everybody an update.
Sorry.
Randy will not be joining us. His computer crashed, and so he is in a panic because he needs it this afternoon for something else. So he's working on that. If he can join us, he'll jump in. And then Ernie did finally join us, so that's just an update. Ernie, please introduce yourself and let's talk about this initiative a little bit.
Well, first of all, before I even introduce myself, I want to comment on Burley's eyes because they don't look near as bloodshot as I thought, since I think you just recently had twins last
Yes,
3 or 4 months ago.
Yes, sir. I'm just starting at they're 3 months old in 2 weeks, and I appreciate the note for them. They're wonderful, 2 little girls, and I'm just starting to get some sleep. It's the most amazing thing I've ever been a part of. So thank you. Yeah, Lexi and Marvel, they're wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm Ernie Cedabach. I'm the president and CEO of the Albuquerque-Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and we're grateful for this partnership we have for this month of July regarding trade with LIBRE Institute and AFP. And, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people to participate, to learn, to hear things that they maybe don't realize that happen with trade. Trade in New Mexico is so vital. We often say that we need to diversify our economy. We're so dependent on the federal government. We're so dependent on oil and gas, but there's much more to an economy than those two things. And we need to diversify our economy, and we can do it through trade much better probably than we've done in the past. No fault from the people that have been working on it, but through barriers that we're going to unleash and discuss here during this series. And so I think there's some really good opportunity for people to realize how they can do some trade, maybe what they may have to look out for when they do it, and ways that we can try to promote that will make things better in trade. So I'm really looking forward to this webinar series. I think we have 9 that we've scheduled, and they're all going to be very, very good. And it's not going to be what people traditionally say with our south of the border country. I mean, we have stuff for European countries that we're going to be discussing. And, one of the things that bothered me, I heard a while back, was that Wisconsin, I believe, did more trade with Mexico than New Mexico. I don't know if that's changed, but that was a couple of years ago. And I went, man, how could that be possible? So
Wow.
New Mexico, we need to focus on here, but I know this is also an issue that's, nationwide. And I think we'll have a really good discussion and participant by everybody here. So thank you for those of you that are listening and for our partnership with LIBRE Institute and AFP. So thank you.
I just want to remind everybody, for those of you that are joining us now or joining us a little bit late, the full version of this webinar will be posted on our website at www.ahcnm.org. You click the COVID-19 link up, drop it down to the LIBRE Initiative webinar series for July, and you'll be able to find all month in there to go back and use these as reference. And again, thank you to LIBRE Initiative, our partner this month, and New Mexico Tech, who always supports us behind the scenes. We appreciate it. So Burley, we left off moving everything over to Ruben. I believe you guys have a presentation for us.
Yes, Jen, if you mind pulling that up, that would be great.
Great. LIBRE Initiative webinar series for July, and you'll be able to find all month in there to go back and use these as reference. And again, LIBRE Initiative, our partner this month, and New Mexico Tech, who always supports us behind the scenes. We appreciate it. So, Burley, we left off moving everything over to Ruben. I believe you guys have a presentation for us.
Yeah, I think
Jen, if you mind pulling that up, that would be great.
we're getting
LIBRE Initiative series for July, and you'll be able to find all month in there to go back and use these as reference. And again, LIBRE Initiative, our partner this month, and New Mexico Tech, who always supports us behind the scenes. We appreciate it. So, Burley, we left off moving everything over to Ruben.
Can we unshare the Canva presentation? I think that may have created a loop somehow.
Yeah, we may
You're
just have
muted, Shannon.
Yeah, we're gonna she's fixing that right now. We're trying to figure out why that is. Is it like just a PowerPoint or a?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a PowerPoint.
Oh, she got it because she was streaming. We got it now. It'll come back up now.
Good deal.
All this
Thank you.
technology that we're all learning. It's so exciting. It's like every day I learn something new with Zoom.
Yeah, it really is. It's a learning curve right now. It's everybody's doing it. We're still getting an echo on my end.
Yeah, I'm hearing feedback loops that it's difficult to speak because we're coming through everywhere else.
There we go. Well, I think we can just walk through it a bit and we can add the graphs. And
yeah, I think, Burley, that you already gave us a good introduction talking about the mission and what we're trying to accomplish with this. I'll start just by talking a little bit about how I came recently to the realization of how tariffs really affect us at every level, every sector of society and business, especially here in New Mexico. So for those of you who know me, obviously I work as the community engagement director for LIBRE, but I'm very involved in our community in a multiplicity of facets and areas. I work very closely for and with a local church here in Albuquerque, Casa del Rey. Are you guys still having audio problems?
it cleared up.
Yeah.
Something on that Canva link, guys. When you're sharing that online link, it's echoing. So
It's because it's an online link.
I would suggest trying to download a link version of it if you can.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what I was going to say. We're doing that because it came as an online link instead of as a presentation. So
Okay.
because she's got live feeds everywhere, so give it just a second. We're going to download it and she'll pull it up.
And we'll share the link in the comments for the video series. You guys can look through that as well when you're viewing the video and walk through it with us while we're working through it. Sorry, Ruben, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I work for a local church here in Albuquerque, Casa del Rey, the King's House, over on the west side of Albuquerque. From my perspective, greatest church, greatest people in the world. And we got kind of a big surprise. We had been working over the last couple of years on upgrading all of our AV and our tech, along with doing an expansion project of our lobby. And one of the things that we were doing in the midst of that was purchasing some really big LED screens, wonderful things if you've seen them. They're absolutely awesome. They're like giant TV screens that you put in kind of like an event center. And we were planning on purchasing them. We were still kind of 8 months out, 9 months out, raising the money for it. And I got a call from our vendor who told us that if we didn't purchase within the next month, that the prices were going to go up 25%. And I thought, well, what's that all about? What's going on? And so he began to talk to me about how there was a trade war going on, and the prices were being affected. And so we needed to kind of come to a decision, or we were going to have to pay a lot more. And so I kind of always had the framework for this, and that I believed that, tariffs are just taxes that are put or placed upon the consumer at the end of the day. And so we got a taste of that. So we had to come to a decision very quickly and come up with more money than we were expecting, faster than we were expecting, to be able to avoid that 25% hike. And not just in that area, in the middle of our construction, the expanding of our lobby, seeing trade prices move along, change up and down, especially on steel. We have been in the middle of trying to figure out how all of this affects us, our budget, our time frame, making adjustments as needed. And so what we're trying to point out here is really to get everybody to understand that trade affects every sector of society, every level of society, and especially businesses here in New Mexico and consumers here in New Mexico. And so we want to do the best that we can to bring attention to this so that people understand what's going on and can actually move our legislators and our lawmakers toward better policies that give us the ability to more freely work within a framework that that really makes it easier for our local business people to do what they need to do.
Indeed. And so with those communication and conversation around trade this month, we're going to be working on a few different activities. Can you guys, I already walked through the mission and why we're doing this here. And we can briefly walk through that just to touch base on the things I had mentioned. We're looking to build strong partnerships, to educate decision makers, to ensure trade is part of our recovery, and to tell personal stories. Much like what Ruben had shared with you, there are real stories that affect some small businesses, 1 or 2 employees, that have a community that engages with them, their consumers. And there's large organizations like Casa del Rey who have a tremendous impact and support for their community and by their community. And they have real challenges that come up when their expenses are 25% more and the government, United States government, takes 25% a higher cost into it as a tax. So we're going to highlight these stories and communicate with you what you can do to change those, and to speak out and support for those community members who are facing these struggles of the challenges of trade barriers. So to do that, we're going to have events. Some of the activities we're going to go through, if you could advance that slide one time. We're going to go through events, working to provide the resources for virtual and in-person events so that you guys have resources you need. And partners are free to co-brand with us as you guys want to. Please let us know. These events will emphasize the importance of trade to the state's businesses, farmers, and economy. We're going to launch a digital media campaign that's going to be starting right away, and we'll have a site up on Wednesday, and we'll work with you to create and distribute digital content. We have a digital toolkit, video testimonial, infographics, news articles, and data that can be shared easily among all the partner organizations. So we encourage you to join and be a part of that. I'd love to get your name up and out to the world and tell them that you're facing some challenges and have barriers or have opportunities that free trade creates for you that we'd like to help maximize and flourish. We'll also be funding a paid digital campaign you can co-brand. So please reach out to us, let us know, reach out to the LIBRE initiative, reach out to Americans for Prosperity, and please reach out to the Hispano Chamber of Commerce and let them know where you want to engage and connect with this. We're looking for spokespeople and stories. We're going to do that as well. We'd like to work with you to help recruit and shine a light on advocates for trade who will command the attention of lawmakers and leaders across New Mexico. Certainly, our leaders in Santa Fe can put out memorials. They can put out commentary that suggests to the federal leaders that the state needs something in terms of moving forward. Can you go back just 1 minute on that last slide, please? Thank you. And then we're also going to promote free trade, provide all partners with the campaign content we create, the op-eds. If you want to join us in an op-ed, a joint op-ed, something like that would be fantastic. We've done that many times and we love your input, and we can work with you to help create something that will be professional and you'll be very proud of. Collateral, digital, promoting their own websites, lawmakers, and the other platforms. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Ruben, would you like to touch base on this one?
See what the next slide is. Yeah, so we're encouraging everybody who's interested in this topic and would like to participate with us to partner with us. And so the benefits of partnership, obviously, it's free. So Americans for Prosperity, the LIBRE Initiative, Trade Builds America, really Trade Builds New Mexico, are committed to providing the resources to grow support for trade throughout our state. We know that the most effective way to do this is by building partnerships with respected businesses just like yours and community leaders like you. Our goal is to allow partnerships to easily plug into the campaign or campaign activities that they can lend to their brand or without needing to expend their own financial resources. So we're not charging for anybody to partner with this or with us in these efforts. And this is completely open source. So we want this to be completely shared and open so that people can see what we're doing and engage in it. And as such, we'll give any organization who wants to partner with us the chance to help us and guide our shared activities, and will allow you to use your events or use the events and content we generate together to fuel your own trade activities. And it's timely. Like, this is a great time to be talking about these issues, especially when we're looking at the uncertainty of what's going on in the economy and the shakiness and the back and forth, especially with the whole COVID situation. We're recognizing that more than what's happening with the bailouts and that kind of stuff, trade really impacts how we're able to do business. And so as small businesses, farmers, and manufacturers struggle to get back on their feet, it's essential that we remind them and people across New Mexico that trade is essential to rebuilding the state's economy.
Hey, Angela, we have some local numbers for what trade is doing here and how it builds New Mexico. But would you mind walking through some of the national conversation about where we are in trade? So everybody who's looking at the conversation who has trade, obviously it's an international thing. It may feel like it's something that Congress deals with, but New Mexico is forced into those conversations. And so we want to know what the global landscape looks like for our trading partners in New Mexico and those looking to expand their business for New Mexico. So what does the national landscape look like?
You bet. Thanks, Burley. Well, this is a really exciting time to be part of trade. It's a complex time to be part of trade. It can be a frustrating time to be part of trade. But at the high level, one thing that just came into effect is the USMCA, the new US, Canada, Mexico agreement, or the new NAFTA. And as of July 1st, after years of negotiating and getting that through Congress, ironically and fantastically, with the biggest bipartisan vote we've ever had in trade, in both the House and the Senate, the USMCA is into effect. I know we're going to be having a series about what Canada and North American trade, Mexico, mean to New Mexico. But largely globally, I mean, not globally, but in the US, Canada and Mexico are our number one and number two trading partners. So they are the ones we need to be working with. We're also navigating the complexities of the steel and aluminum tariffs. Those were imposed in the spring of 2018. A 25% tariff on steel, 15% on aluminum. That's really affected a lot of companies in terms of their bottom line, their sourcing, how they're trying to navigate working with a number of our trading partners who not only have those tariffs imposed, but are now counter-retaliating. So we have a lot of our exporters, including dairy, that have been feeling the brunt of that counter-retaliation as they're trying to export around the world. We did finish Japan phase 1. Japan is a great market for a lot of our products. And I can think of those pecans going into Japan as well, but there's more to be done. So we need a phase 2 agreement to go into effect to remove some of those technical barriers to trade. We're talking with the UK about having a bilateral trade agreement. Those talks are happening now. Great time to get on the mark and be part of those negotiations on what we need to do with our partners in Europe, but specifically the UK. And then there's a lot of talk about the TPP. The US withdrew from the TPP, and that was a big market for us to engage in with new trading partners like Vietnam and some of the other Pacific Rim partners that really would help us sort of counterbalance a lot of the China negotiations. And then last not least, you've touched on it, we've been in the throes of a trade war with China, and that has impacted everything from baby wipes to machinery to small businesses. And we'll talk a lot about how those businesses are trying to navigate the landscape as we look to reduce those tariffs, those taxes on American consumers as well. So there's a lot happening right now. We're excited about this series, and we hope that everyone will get off the bench and be part of it. Trade is not a spectator sport, so we need you to be involved with it and tell your story. So Burley, back to you.
Thank you. Would you mind pulling up that slide? The next slide, we have shared content around trade builds in New Mexico and the local New Mexico data. When you have that, and I think Ernie, your story was perfect and spot on. There's these local stories are really impactful, whether it's a business fighting to stay in the margins and having that 25% cut in the ability to put a product out competitively to provide their consumers with something that is meaningful. And it hits hardest when you're that mother on a tight income with a couple kids. And now your sneakers are 25% more expensive. A business has a choice, right? They get their sneakers, they do the best they can to provide the best product they can at the best price they can, and to maintain the margins so they stay in business and hire employees. So if they are mandated by the government to have a 25% increase in the cost of that product, the person that has to absorb it is either the business in their margins, as you all know and understand margin, and or they pass it on the consumer. And the hardest hit is the person who has the least money. That person who's buying their sneakers, they're made in other countries where they can afford to reduce cost and have standards of living that maintain, they are going to have the hardest hit in bringing that product forward. And that mother has the hardest time absorbing the 25% increase in cost. She has a very low income. She has a very hard time. So there's real stories out here that go beyond the businesses, and they're the consumers who end up not buying from that consumer or that business. And it puts even more pressure on our system. So there's a real cost. There's a real human story here that everybody wants to push onto other discussions. But the reality is that this is hardest on all of us in the United States. That's what a tariff does, is it's brutal on the people in the country that impose the tariff. So this is hard on Americans. The tariffs hurt Americans, whether it's businesses or consumers. Were you able to pull up that slide for the information on New Mexico? Maybe I'm not able to see it on mine, but let me pull it up on mine.
It's up, really.
Great. All right. So if you can see in New Mexico, we have 1,316 new businesses that export, New Mexico businesses that export to Mexico. That's amazing. We want to keep that. We want to grow that. That doesn't need to diminish because we make it harder to engage with other countries. Because we've engaged in free trade conversations with countries that want to trade with us, and we need to trade with them, and vice versa, they've allowed us to get to a great place. There's a pecan farmer in southern New Mexico. On his own, he had negotiated from a 40% tariff with the Chinese, where they were charging 40% to bring his product into China. And now he had it down to 7%. Because the United States began to engage in tariff practices, I'll mind you, a communist country is using these practices. We don't necessarily want to use systems of control that Chinese communist government's using. I would suggest tariffs are much less effective than many things we can do and have been working for us. So that tariff imposed in China on Chinese goods and other countries created a pressure on the pecan farmer in New Mexico, whose tariffs have now gone to 45%. So he negotiated his own deal on his own because they want his pecans in China. And that was a New Mexico exporter. And to that point, agriculture exports are $762 million for New Mexicans. That's a big part of our economy. It's 17.9% of everything we have. As Ernie mentioned, we need to diversify our economy. We have to grow it. We have to be able to engage in the global commerce industry. That is where we're going to have these conversations of expansion and growth. We can't just rely on Texas. We can't just rely on New Mexico to have everything that we're going to do grow and expand and prosper. We have to look to Mexico and every other country in the world and see where we can get the best opportunities for all of us to flourish in the products we purchase and the goods and services that we use. In manufacturing, it's even bigger, $3.5 billion. If we're making things here and sending them overseas, $3.5 billion of our commerce system is done here in New Mexico and sent overseas. The more countries that we diminish the conversation, the relationship with by these rough tactics, the harder that is for us to keep those and grow those. Our total exports are $4.2 billion. And I would suggest that we need to encourage free trade agreements. So we've seen this week at the USMCA, encourage those conversations to keep happening and keep growing, and that will grow the United States and New Mexico as well. We have over 200,000 jobs in New Mexico that are dependent on trade. Every time that we play the game of the government getting in the middle of the conversation, then we diminish the opportunity for those jobs to grow. We make it harder for those companies to stay in business. In the midst of COVID, you have already pressure on margins. You have already pressure on businesses to stay in power, in place and empower their employees to do the jobs they do. You don't need another pressure like a tariff. You don't need the United States government imposing a tax to take away money from from businesses in New Mexico who want to trade around the country. So we have small businesses, manufacturing, consumers themselves are recipients of a lot of trade that comes in the United States, that is by New Mexico businesses that buy from other countries and sell to our consumers. And that's an important part of what we do. So I would just keep these facts in mind, take a look at the businesses that are succeeding for New Mexico's future by using trade and bringing in products from other places, and vice versa, selling products to other countries. And keep that in mind when you're talking to your business partners and to your other community members when you're looking at trade. Ruben, did you want to take a look at the story we had? Wait, we had a story there. I forget which one. Angela, did you recall it?
Yes, and if we talk a little on the next slide, so we actually have an example. This program we're actually rolling out in 3 states. So we are very excited to be really working with partners in Virginia and Colorado and more. And part of what we're doing here is also telling your story. So as Burley mentioned, we're going to have our website live soon, and we're going to be looking to add content. You can even use this slide actually tells you about what you can do with your phone. The power is right in your hand, and taking a story to say who you are with your company. Tell us a little bit about your business. Why does trade matter to you? Who are your customers, right? What are you doing to grow your business? And what are the things that could be reduced, those barriers that can make you more profitable? And then finally, what message do you want to send to your local, state, and federal lawmakers about why trade's important? And then last, we're going to end it with that sort of Trade Builds New Mexico. These are 30 seconds long. So if you have the opportunity, again, power's in your phone, we're going to send you instructions on how you can make those videos and send them our way, because we want to amplify your voice. And if we can pull it up, fingers crossed, we have an example of someone who's doing that in Colorado. And again, we're going to be getting a bunch of these in New Mexico. Shannon, will that slide come up and play the video on the next one?
Yes.
I'm with Laser Technology. I've been with them for 11 years. And Laser Technology manufactures electronic measuring devices, and it is probably the most worldwide company I have ever worked with. Trade matters for us because international revenue is over 50% of our revenue. Laser Technology also has a very nice balance of trade, international trade. We not only export all over the world, but we also manufacture and we import, assemble, and re-export. So we are truly global.
That's a great video. You guys can see how, if any of you have a story that you want to share, we can put together a professional video for you. Make sure that you have a chance to share that video with New Mexico, with decision makers, with business leaders, with community partners, with organizations inside of Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the broader Trade New Mexico community, Trade Builds New Mexico community. So we encourage you to reach out to us. Let us know about your stories, like the pecan farmer we worked with, and how that had a real impact. The real conversation that we should all be having about the mother who is trying to buy shoes for her kids, or the business owner who's trying to stay in business or grow, and really get those stories out so that we can share those for you. Again, none of this has any cost to you. This is about empowering your conversation, about uplifting your story and sharing it with those who don't know much about trade. It's often a conversation that is lost in translation and the nuance of margin and consumer options and choice are lost in the conversation sometimes. And this is about empowering your conversation. So if you're really trying to tell a story and you have a real barrier that you're facing, we'd love to help you share that story. So let us know. Connect with Ernie, connect with Ruben, connect with myself, and let us know how we can help share your story or how this impacts you. If nothing else, let us hear the story so we can share it, even if it's anecdotal and doesn't have specifics. We need to know how New Mexico is affected by trade. We know across the country that we're hearing the stories, and we know that the real unfortunate outcomes that are happening because of these trade barriers are starting to come to the surface more and more, and it's affecting the economy in ways that are putting a lot of pressure in Congress to make a change. And now's the time to make your voice heard, and we can do that very effectively in getting that voice out through social media and advertising campaigns and media. So please reach out and let us know.
So Burley, am I live right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sound great.
Oh, here's what's really important about stories. You know, in a way, tariffs, I don't want to compare it to the pandemic, but for businesses, when you have tariffs, the business is doing what they normally do 365 days a year. And when a tariff is imposed, that is something that is out of their control. And the people who suffer are the businesses, because what happens is, you're talking about the sneakers. Guess what? Whoever is going to buy those sneakers, they're going to wait. They may not buy the sneakers. They're going to keep wearing those old sneakers for a while. And the business is going to suffer because of no fault of their own. Something created by the government, these tariffs, has hurt their business and their livelihood. And you have this downward spiral of how that affects the entire economy. So, you know, it's out of their control. It's more expensive for the end user. And the business is the one that's ultimately hurt because they still can't sell those sneakers or as many as sneakers. And so it really is a touchstone on how these things can affect it. And I really encourage people to tell their stories because they're impactful. That last one you just showed from Colorado, 50% of their revenue comes from international. So imagine what that does if you have a tariff that lasts a year or 6 months, whatever. You can destroy that business. And,
yeah, think about that $2.8 billion in manufacturing. And obviously, I don't know the number, but if it was 50% of their number, that's $1.1 billion in sales that we have going outside in international trade that is in danger of being lost to New Mexico. And Ernie, as you know, as somebody who's an advocate and steward of business culture, you know how hard it is to start a company, much less restart one if you lose it based on these conditions, as you said eloquently, that are out of our hands, that you can't change. You're forced out of business. And then on top of it, government policy like tariffs, you have COVID that hits you. It's not the right time for tariffs. It's not, in my opinion, ever the time for tariffs, but it's certainly a brutal time to have that on top of COVID. So I really appreciate what you had to say. I think it's spot on.
So I'm gonna jump in here, guys, really quick. First of all, I want to say it sounds to me like we're doing a little call to action here. So for everybody that is watching, for you guys that are around the state, we're going to push this for the next month. We would love for you to submit to us your story. Let us know how trade has impacted your business. I think we'll have to mute Ernie. Trade has impacted your business, and what, good or bad, we want to hear. We want to know, because, you know, how do we fix the problems that exist, and then how do we continue to share those inspirational stories? So first and foremost, if you have a trade story, if your business is doing work in import export, we want to hear from you. So get a hold of us at Shannon at ahcnm.org for now, and we'll put that in the link here inside the Facebook Live. That way you guys can send us that information. We'd love to share it on some of these webinars. And I'd also like to thank the Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for joining us today and doing a watch party, because trade is all over our country. It is not just in New Mexico, though we are focused on New Mexico for the month of July. I think it's really important to know that everybody's affected by this. All of the states are affected affected by this from top to bottom. And if your business doesn't directly deal with trade, as Ernie and Burley stated, as a consumer, we're affected. So this really is for everybody. For those of you out there going, I don't know that I really need to watch that, you probably should watch these webinars because we're all affected by trade. So I just want to throw that little bit in. So we're going to let you guys continue now.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind too is what is possible. New Mexico is all about what we need to grow and what is not here yet, and the opportunity we have, the potential to flourish more than we've known. And all of us who've been here all of our life know the story of what New Mexico can be, and we want it to be, and we are here to help encourage it to be. And when you put in artificial barriers that are government created, that impose mandates and tariffs and burdens and blockades toward businesses starting, we all know how hard it is to start a business. In New Mexico, sometimes it's even harder. And these conversations need to happen. We need to protect our businesses. We need to protect our consumers. And I encourage you to be strong, to have the fortitude to speak up now. It is the time to do it. And I think at this point, if you guys don't have anything else, I think we're going to turn it over for a few questions and answers if we have any. And let you guys engage any kind of questions you have about tariffs, questions you have about the campaign that we're going to launch here, and anything that we can help understand or clarify about trade buildings to New Mexico and the challenges and opportunities that tariffs create.
So we have a question about what are some of the topics that are going to be covered over the next month. And I thought maybe Angela, since she's worked so closely on those topics, might give us a quick run through or however we want to talk about it, so that, again, I'm thinking that people are thinking, oh, I'm not in a business that, that I'm doing trade, when really it's just about everything from the manufacturer, the consumer, all the way down and in between. So maybe we can start with you, Angela, on that.
Sure. So some of the topics we're going to be covering are, what's at stake in terms of our new trade agreements. Next week, or our next one actually will be talking about the USMCA. How do we leverage our North American platform, whether that's finding new customers or collaborating with component pieces? What does USMCA mean? And what does that mean not only for manufacturers, but also agriculture producers? Those are key markets. We're going to talk on the topic of navigating some of the complexities in the tariff wars and what you can do to engage vis-a-vis getting your product off a list. Right now, there's an open window. If you have a COVID-related product, if you're a wipe or a hand sanitizer, or you're an emergency generator, you have an opportunity to actually get off that list, but it's a little complex. We'll talk about how we can manage that. We're going to talk about how we can engage our legislators. In fact, a lot of this trade that Burley just talked about is a matter of our Senate and Congress taking their authority back in terms of trade. And what does that mean when the constitutional right actually sits within our legislators? But also, how do you engage locally? This is really an opportunity for our governors, our state leads in terms of agriculture and commerce to be involved in bilateral trade. They do a lot of those trade missions and opening new markets. And then we'll also talk a little bit about what does it look like from a small business? What should you be thinking about? If you're seeing cost increases, what could that be leading to? And what might be some of the strategies to manage that risk or navigate some of the complexities in the supply chain? What are some of the conversations you should have with your suppliers or end groups? Maybe alternative sourcing, but maybe looking at different ways to manage the trade that's going on. And then most importantly, Shannon, I think, we want to have everybody's radar up. You're hearing things in the news and the media, and make sure that there's a clarity about, tariffs or taxes. What does that mean for me, the consumer? What does that mean for my short-term, mid-term, long-term decisions for either hiring, expanding my business, investing in R&D? So we really take the kind of the wonky stuff out of trade and we put it in people's pockets to think about, how do you become more profitable? How do you become more nimble? And at the end of the day, really drive more customers into your business. So we're going to touch those topics throughout this series.
That's great. And thank you, Angela, for that. I want to just mention, Ryan Chavez, who works with us here at the Hispano Chamber, who is not just our policy analyst, but has an interest in this topic and is working behind the scenes as well, has been reaching out to fill those panel spaces. And we're excited to bring you guys some people from around the state that have not just a vested interest, but have a knowledge, and this is their full-time job. They're experts in the area. And so we're going to share those with you as we get them. You can stay tuned again to our website if you want to always know the upcoming one. So that's important. So, Ruben, one of the questions that came in was just to talk, can you just give us a second about the LIBRE initiative, your mission, and how your involvement, in how we kind of pulled it all together through you, through the membership to bring this program forward for the month of July.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, I'll repeat kind of our overarching mission is really just to help, and we focus on the Hispanic community, but help them break barriers, both internal and external. And so many of our of those who are part of the Hispanic community here are business owners, and everyone is a consumer in New Mexico. And so as we were, starting these conversations, we really began to talk about how it's kind of blinded from everybody how much trade and trade wars and tariffs are affecting us, our business owners, Hispanic business owners, and non-Hispanic business owners, and the consumers here in New Mexico. And so we began to have conversations, and we were launching this kind of initiative nationwide, which is Trade Builds America. And so we decided, well, how awesome would it be to be able to start a conversation and to talk about how these issues affect our people in our state here in New Mexico, and to really start to open people's eyes so that we can start talking about how real it is. And one of the things I mentioned earlier was every sector, every level of society. And I started to really see how those issues affected us, just with nonprofits that I work for, with the local church that I work for, especially as we were doing big construction projects and AV expansions and that kind of a thing. I started to learn, man, this can be a really difficult thing for local consumers and business owners to have to deal with. It puts friction and puts tension between consumer and business owner, and I imagine between business owner and the people that they're trying to get these products from other countries, and just how difficult it can be to navigate all of those intricacies, whether you're trying to get your products from Mexico and then it's different if it's from China, even though it might be the same product, and how do I get around this? And then so if I'm having to add this or tack this extra tariff onto the products that I'm selling, trying to get to the consumers who are purchasing from me, what do I do with it? Do I just eat it myself as a business owner? Do I pass it on to them? As Ernie was mentioning, if I pass it on to them, maybe they decide, well, that's too expensive for me now, I'll wait on it. Or, and so businesses are really affected by this. And I think that the conversation about how tariffs and trade affects us here in New Mexico has kind of been silent. And so I'm really excited to see over this next month us really bring this to the forefront. Hopefully we'll get lots of stories from people all over the state who can kind of share how trade and tariffs have affected them. And I think this knowledge base is really going to help us as we move forward, especially in the middle of this kind of economic crisis we're going through in the middle of COVID season, to push toward a restructuring of our businesses, and maybe even, to see a restructuring in our government, talking in terms of trade and tariffs that will be more beneficial for businesses and consumers here in New Mexico in the long run. That's our goal with it. We just want to see barriers broken so that people can achieve the best of their potential. And that's kind of what this whole thing and how it really came about.
Well, thank you so much for that, Ruben. I think some people were not sure about the LIBRE initiative. So this is a great way for us to share about what you do and how our partnership works so well, especially in the Spanish-speaking or Hispanic business owner community. And so we appreciate that. I do have one statement that I think can absolutely take care of a couple of odds and ends, bullet points that have been put out there, and lots of live feeds going on around, and Angelique's feeding me all this info over here. But, trade is is worldwide. It's not Mexico and it's not China. And I think we need to remember that. And you know, we're not just importing and exporting to those countries. We're doing that all over the globe. And it's amazing. And you're going to hear about it in this series about some of the really crazy things that get you know, get imported to a country or exported from a country that we don't even realize. And so, yeah, it's not going to be specifically focused on Mexico or China. We are doing big stuff with the UK. We're working on stuff with Canada. And, you know, we recently had buyers from Europe, many states in Europe, as well as Japan and Italy in here to do some trade with us for some beer, wine, and spirits. So I think just getting the public educated on trade in general is going to be a huge feat. And,
I think it is going to be phenomenal to really open people's eyes to just how much we don't know about trade with every country in the world, and how those connections come all the way to us locally here in Albuquerque, here in New Mexico, and people are going to be shocked. It's going to be awesome.
It'll be eye-opening. So tune in every day for sure, every webinar, because we might have something fun to share with you. You know, I want to start closing up the hour for sure, and kind of just touching base. One of the last questions that came in, and I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of time on it because we're going to talk about it upcoming, but just to touch base, it's just important for everybody to know that, you know, people are concerned right now with COVID about doing trade. Is it safe to trade? Those types of things. So kind of turned over to Burley on this one, and maybe, you know, just give us a sentence or two what your thoughts are on that. But that is definitely a concern with people during COVID time.
Well, it's a good question. You want to be careful and safe during COVID. Make sure all of our family members are safe. I have two twins who were 3 months old who were born during COVID, so I'm certainly concerned and thinking about it. I think all of us should be. It doesn't matter whether something is coming from Illinois or southern New Mexico to Albuquerque or Mexico or Vietnam. It all needs to have a careful process. And there are people working very hard at the border, in customs in a lot of places. And that's a proper role for the government. That's a better conversation to be had for the government instead of imposing cost artificially to hurt Americans who are trying to consume the goods they need to survive and thrive through COVID, whether they're a business or a consumer. So I think it's a good question. I think that we have solved that issue by being careful and safe and having good practices. And as business owners, as consumers, and as entities of business, the government who are looking at things coming through borders and checkpoints. So I think we're in good shape. We've done a good job of watching that over many years with many iterations of the flu and other contaminants that get into these shipping situations. So I think we're going to be good. We are good. We do a good job, and trade is safe, and it's vital to our success. So please get out there and trade with your neighbor and around the world. You're muted.
So as we, yeah, I keep forgetting. She mutes me. So as we start to wind down the hour, something else that came in, we're going to talk about this in future webinars for Beatrice out there who's asking the question, is there trainings that are available for businesses for countries that we're planning to trade with? And the answer is yes, and we're going to get into that a little bit more as we get into specifics with the countries that we're going to be working with over the next month. So we invite everybody out there to be tuning in every Monday and Wednesday from 12 to 1. Give or take a few minutes, guys. Sometimes we have technical difficulties getting going. But I do want to wrap up today. I want to say, so big, you know, we're really excited around here to take this next month, the month of July, to learn about trade. It's so informative. I have yet to open an email or a link and not learn something. It's like Ernie said earlier, it's like your PhD wrapped in one. I mean, we're going to walk away with so much information, but it's so important to what we do, our economic platform that we survive on every day in our community, and how we continue to help small businesses grow and scale. in our community and in our country as well. So on Wednesday, we're going to be joined by a wonderful panel, and we're really going to break down and talk about USMCA, that's the United States, Mexico, and Canada agreement, which is basically the new NAFTA, if you will. And so we're going to learn more about that with some great panelists. Get those questions prepared, get them asked early. I know there's going to be a lot because we're getting all the questions here at the end, but whatever questions we didn't get to, we're going to roll on to the next one. We're going to find the answers for everybody that is out there. So I want to say thank you to everybody that has joined us today. We're looking forward to the next month with you guys. We want to say thank you to the LIBRE initiative. Thank you so much for your support this month. And of course, the little elves behind the scene at New Mexico Tech. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you on Wednesday. Everybody have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.